Well, up next, we're going to talk to a millionaire who claims to want to pay more taxes. He's dying to have his taxes raised. So we're going to talk to this guy and find out why he feels that all the money that he's sending to Washington isn't quite enough and that he needs to send even more. We're going to have that conversation right after this, so stick around. Joining the program now is Daniel Berger, who is a leading HIV specialist. He is affiliated with, or associate professor at the Chicago campus of the University of Illinois College of Medicine. But it's not his medical background that has brought him on this show. Daniel Berger fancies himself a modern-day patriot. He is a member of an organization called Patriotic Millionaires, and this is a group, I suppose, of millionaires who want to pay higher taxes. Is that correct, Daniel?
Yes, Peter. Let me just correct something. I am not a physician or a medical researcher. I'm an attorney. So, but it is correct.
Okay, well,
I do belong to a group called the Patriotic Millionaires, which consists of persons who make $1 million a year or more, which roughly corresponds to top 1% of income earners in the country, and who advocate slightly higher taxes on the rich to deal with the so-called
okay, so you are an
emergency.
attorney,
yeah,
and your annual taxable income exceeds $1 million a year.
It has, yes.
Well, does it currently exceed $1 million a year?
Well, we'll see.
Well, I mean, I want to make sure that, these taxes are actually going to hit you. All right, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Now, do you do your taxes yourself, or do you have an accountant?
No, I have accountants that prepare my tax forms.
Well, why do you use an accountant? I mean, what's the purpose of hiring an accountant to do your taxes?
To make sure they're done properly. And, I have
to make sure,
I have earned income.
To make sure,
yeah.
But isn't it also to make sure that you take advantage of all the deductions that you're entitled to so that you don't overpay or, pay more than you're required?
Sure, absolutely. And but I don't regard that as tax avoidance. It's just the
No, I'm not saying it's avoidance, but you're hiring an accountant. You're spending money to make sure that you pay as low a tax as possible legally.
To pay the taxes that are required by law. That's correct.
Right, but you're trying to minimize. I mean, if there's a deduction, you're taking advantage of it, right? You're not just, you use all the deductions that your accountant can find, correct?
Right, but it turns out that people make $1 million a year or more. It depends. You can have a wide variety of taxes being paid as a percentage of income. Because of deductions that are available to people in that tax bracket, and it varies from person to person.
Well, right. Well, you take advantage of the deductions.
I don't have that much investment income, and so I rely primarily on earned income as opposed to unearned income, and so I pay close to the highest rate. For example,
well, you're in the same position. You're in the same position as me. Yeah,
Peter, we advocated, that the rich pay slightly higher taxes in the form of eliminating the Bush tax cuts on the top 1% or letting them expire, which would raise the rate from 35%, the top marginal rate from 35% to 39.6%, which was an increase of 4.6 percentage points, or in percentage terms.
Yeah, I understand that, but my question to you, Daniel, if you believe that it's your patriotic duty to pay more taxes, why do you hire an accountant, and why do you try to take advantage of deductions that lower your taxes? Why not just pay more? If you think it's your duty to pay more taxes, just go ahead and do it. Because you don't need a law to do that.
Yeah, sure, of course, and that's one of the arguments that has been made. I don't think it's a particularly strong argument because it's not effective to pay taxes on a voluntary basis, or to treat taxes or the activities of the government at any level, whether it be state, local,
but you're saying it's
level,
patriotic
as a charity. As a charity, there's something in economics called the free rider effect. Okay,
right?
So
but Daniel,
it doesn't matter.
You're missing my point. You're missing my point. You're saying it's patriotic to pay more taxes. Well, if it's patriotic, you don't need a law. Just send some money to the government.
I understand, but it's not. Okay, so the answer is it's not effective to do it in that fashion. It won't solve the problem. Okay, the purpose of paying, as I said at the outset, we advocate this not because we love to pay taxes, but to address the supposed fiscal emergency that we're in. And we believe that there ought to be shared sacrifice. And so that for rich people, people who in the top 1%, which corresponds roughly to people who earn $1 million a year or more, to pay slightly higher taxes at most.
But they already do. But they already pay higher taxes. Well, let's put it this way.
Yeah, they pay taxes. Look, they pay somewhat higher federal income taxes because the federal income taxes is slightly progressive, but it's less progressive than the rates would suggest because people in the top 1% actually pay about 22% of their income in taxes.
Daniel, let me ask you this question. Let me ask you this question. So you live in Illinois?
No, I live in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia.
All right. What's the state income tax in Pennsylvania? Top rate.
It's about 6%.
All right, so you take 35, and plus next year the Medicare tax goes up to 3.8. So 35 plus 3.8. So your federal tax, even without the tax increases, next year is going to be 38.9 plus 6% for the state. So you're almost at 45% of your income.
That's not true.
Going to the federal government.
That's not true, because
what do you mean?
on average. People in the top 1% pay only 20%.
I'm not talking about on average. Well, that's not true. I'm not talking about on average.
That's the effective rate because of deductions that are available to people.
All right, I can tell you. I can tell you personally, I'm in that bracket too. All right, I'm in that bracket too, and I'm paying all that money. That's my effective rate. Like 45% of my income goes to the government right now.
Well, you don't. Unfortunately, you don't have any unearned income, I guess. You know,
I do, but it's small compared to my earned income.
Okay,
yes,
well,
it's very small compared to my earned income.
You and I are like that, but you know, most people in the top 1%, as a percentage of people in that category in terms of income earned, have large, if not massive, amounts of unearned income.
Yeah, but most of that unearned income was already Daniel, most of that unearned income is already taxed at the corporate level. If you earn dividends, if you earn income from a corporation, that income was taxed at 35% before you even got your dividend check. So when you take the total tax, it's actually a lot higher. But let me ask you a more fundamental question. Let me ask you a fundamental question, Daniel.
It's just not
true.
It
is true, but
yeah,
Daniel, let me just ask you this fundamental question.
It's meaningless because my interest in a corporation has to do with my shareholder interest, and there's no correlation between shareholder prices and corporate taxes. Plus,
of course there is. A corporation is a pass-through.
What study are you citing? It's not
Daniel,
a pass-through.
I don't need a Daniel, look, I'm a stockbroker. That's what I do for a living. I buy stocks for a living. The value of a stock is its after-tax earnings. And the taxes are paid on behalf of the shareholders. If a group of people come together and incorporate, and then they pay taxes as a group, that's their money. But I don't need to give you a lecture on corporations. What I want to ask you is, how is it going to help the country? If right now I'm giving 45% of my income to the government, and I give an extra 5%.
You may be, but the vast majority of people in your tax bracket are giving 22% to the federal government.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
So we advocated slightly higher taxes, which are far from confiscatory.
I know what you're advocating, Daniel. I know what you're advocating.
You know, if you wanted to,
if
people were advocating. How does it help?
I want to ask you a question. How is sending more money? How is taking more of my money that I might otherwise invest in growing my business or growing somebody else's business? How is it going to help the country by taking more of the money that I've earned and sending it to Washington D.C.? How is the country better off?
Here's the answer. It has to do with the subject matter of the so-called fiscal cliff, okay? There is a need. I think it's been exaggerated because it's not an immediate short-run need. but there is a necessity to engage in what's known as fiscal consolidation, to bring the federal budget and expenditures more into line, because we've had an increase.
But no, that's not my question. How is sending more of my money to the government going to help the country?
Here's the way it works. Here's the way it works. We need to raise about $3 trillion over the next 10 years to return the deficit to more normal levels of about 3%.
Yeah, why don't we cut spending? We need to cut government spending.
That's right. It's a combination of increasing revenues and cutting spending.
But why is increasing revenues? If we're going to increase revenues, we need to take it from money that would be spent. We need to take it from the middle class who would spend money. How is taking money away from me or a businessman who might have taken that money and invested it in new plant and equipment? How is it better to send it to the government?
As it was said often, it's a question of math. There's a $3 trillion gap that needs to be closed over the next 10 years. And there are different formulations.
Do you know? I know. Do you know why? Let me ask you, Daniel. Do you know why the deficit is a problem? But let me ask you a question first. Why is the deficit a problem? Why is it bad for the country to have a deficit?
It's a problem because one political party, the Republicans, acted in an irresponsible fashion. No.
It's not about politics. I'm asking you.
Okay, so
I'm not asking you about politics. You're not answering the question.
Let me just answer the question. Let me answer.
Well, you're not answering it. That's the problem.
Okay.
All right, go ahead. You can answer it your way. Then I'll ask it to you again.
Then you can cross-examine. Okay. All right. Let me answer it in my way. Unfortunately, one of the political parties in this country believed in something called supply-side economics, in which they believed that you could cut taxes and increase spending at the same time without creating budget deficits and adding to the national debt. And the thought was that economic growth would be strong enough to offset.
Yeah, I know all that. None of that has anything to do with the question I'm asking you.
So here's what it has to do.
Well, I got a commercial break, but we got to take this break. Daniel.
Peter,
Daniel, that's not my question. Here's what you can think about during the break. I want you to think about, Daniel, I got to take a commercial break. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back, maybe. This is Peter Schiff back without Daniel Berger. And, I tried to get him back on. We tried to promise to be nice, to let him talk, even though he refused to answer any of the questions that I tried to ask him in a very lawyer-like way, in a very political way. He's very evasive. And I think it says a lot about this organization. It's not a real organization. It is a sham. It is basically a front for the Democratic Party. Because if you listen to what this guy, Daniel Berger, actually wanted to say, all he wanted to do was spout Democratic talking points. See, he wanted to make it all about politics and go back about trickle down and the Bush tax cuts and why we had a deficit. And again, the last question I wanted to ask him was that why is a deficit a problem? Now, it wasn't that I wanted to ask him that because I didn't know that he would know the answer, although probably not. Because remember, think about how, I don't know if I want to say the word stupid. I mean, I don't even know that this guy makes. I like to see a copy of this guy's tax return because I don't think he sounds like he's a good enough attorney to actually make $1 million a year. In fact, I kind of doubt he's ever made $1 million in a year. But maybe